Imagine, for just a second, walking into this highly secure corporate building, or, honestly, even just your local retail store.
Right.
You look up, and the ceilings are completely bare. Like, there are zero cameras. No little glass domes, no flashing red lights, nothing.
Just a normal room.
Exactly. And you might look around and think, wow, total privacy, but you'd be completely wrong.
So wrong.
Because even without a single lens in the entire building, the structure itself knows exactly where you are. It knows your posture, your unique walking stride, and it's calculating all of this right through solid concrete walls.
Yeah, we are crossing a very strange threshold right now in how we interact with digital infrastructure. The environment is shifting from watching us with discrete devices to simply sensing us as physical disruptions in the air.
Which is just wild.
Yeah.
So, welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is to explore this mind-blowing transition happening right across the enterprise world. We're unpacking how standard, everyday corporate Wi-Fi is basically being transformed into a privacy-by-design surveillance network.
Right.
And through that lens, we're going to understand why the traditional optical camera, which has been the absolute gold standard for decades, is facing systemic obsolescence.
Yeah, the age of the camera is ending. And our roadmap for this is this brilliant white paper from June 2026. It's by an independent cybersecurity researcher named Idris Iclek.
Right.
It's titled Device-Free Spatial Intelligence, or DFSI. And the author actually notes right up front that the paper was compiled and structured with the assistance of generative AI, which is cool because it pulls together this massive array of emerging wireless spatial intelligence research.
Yeah, and it is a wild, incredibly dense read.
Yeah.
Before we get into the pure science fiction of how walls can suddenly see you,
Right.
we need to, ground this in reality a bit. Because I kept wondering why the corporate world is even looking for a replacement for the security camera. I mean, cameras are cheap. They work. We literally put them everywhere.
Yeah, they're ubiquitous.
Right. So I initially thought this was just, tech companies wanting the newest shiny toy.
Yeah. Well, what's fascinating here is that the motivation is actually pure self-defense. It's about compounding legal liability. The traditional visual surveillance infrastructure, it's just becoming too dangerous to operate.
Dangerous how? Physically?
Mostly legally, but physically there are issues too. The white paper highlights escalating total cost of ownership. So things like structural mounts, extensive physical data wiring, low light degradation.
Blind spots, all that stuff.
Exactly. But, I mean, I hear you.
Yeah, because I just don't buy that companies will abandon cameras just because of, wiring costs or a few blind spots. A video feed is undeniable proof, right?
Right.
It just feels really counterintuitive to replace high-definition video with invisible radio waves just to save a few bucks on maintenance.
And you'd be right to be skeptical, but the hardware limitations, that's just the tip of the spear. The real existential threat to the camera is the data it actually produces.
Okay, unpack that for me.
So, standard optical cameras collect high-fidelity visual biometrics by default. Every single time you walk past one, it captures your face, your unique physical attributes, the clothes you are wearing.
Which is the whole point of a camera.
True, but in the current regulatory environment, storing that kind of data is basically a ticking time bomb.
Oh, wow. Okay, when you frame it like that, it's like having a camera turned on is essentially accidentally hoarding toxic material.
Yes, precisely.
Because, if a company's database of passwords gets hacked, they just force everyone to do a password reset, right? But if a database of raw security footage gets breached...
You cannot reset someone's face.
Wow. Yeah.
And that permanent biological link is what triggers massive class action lawsuits. We are seeing incredibly strict global biometric data compliance penalties right now.
Like GDPR and stuff.
Exactly. GDPR in Europe, BIPA in Illinois, PIPEDA in Canada. A single data breach involving visual biometrics can literally bankrupt a mid-sized enterprise today.
So it's almost like cameras have become the VCRs of the security world.
Ah, that's a good way to put it.
Right. Like they are this clunky legacy tech that forces you to record absolutely everything on a massive tape.
Yeah.
So moving away from cameras isn't really a story about adopting better technology.
Yeah.
It is a desperate maneuver to avoid liability.
Yeah.
Like a company just wants to know if a perimeter is breached. They do not want the legal burden of holding a high-res video of the intruder's face.
Exactly, which forces this massive pivot. If capturing visual light is too much of a legal risk, the industry had to find a completely different medium to track physical space.
And this is where the paper completely hooked me. because they found the answer in the physics of the human body interacting with ambient radio frequencies.
Just incredible.
The human body is roughly 70% water. And, in the context of the standard 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, and 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi waves that are bouncing around your office right now,
Right.
that water content turns you into a dynamic conductive reflector.
Yeah, your body literally physically alters the phase and the amplitude of the radio frequency field in any room you walk into.
That is just nuts.
It really is. And the DFSI paper details 2 specific modalities for capturing these alterations. The first is called CSI, or Channel State Information. This is the ultra-detailed approach. It captures channel properties at the individual subcarrier level.
Yeah, reading about CSI felt like looking through a microscope. The paper says it tracks the multipath trajectories of a signal so precisely that an AI can monitor, like, the expansion of your chest as you breathe.
Right, or even the fine motor movements of your fingers typing on a keyboard, just from the Wi-Fi bouncing off you.
That fidelity is astonishing. But CSI comes with a pretty massive operational bottleneck, right?
Huge bottleneck. Accessing that level of data typically requires lower-level firmware privileges on the actual wireless interface card.
So you're hacking the router.
Basically, yeah. You have to deeply modify the hardware or the operating system of the router to get CSI.
Which immediately kills it as a mass-market enterprise solution. You can't ask a Fortune 500 company to flash custom experimental firmware onto 10,000 office routers.
Yeah.
It's an IT nightmare.
Complete nightmare. And the paper acknowledges that limitation, which is why it pivots to the second modality. And this is the actual breakthrough driving mass adoption right now.
Okay, what is it?
It's called BFI, or Beamforming Feedback Information. And BFI relies on how modern multi-user MIMO systems, multiple input, multiple output routers, how they already function right out of the box.
Right. Okay, I want to make sure I understand the mechanics here.
Yeah.
Because modern routers don't just blast Wi-Fi blindly in a big 360-degree circle anymore, right?
No, not anymore.
They actually focus their signals directly toward client devices, like the smartphone in your pocket.
Yeah.
Using beamforming.
Exactly.
It's almost like the router is shining a spotlight directly at your phone rather than turning on a giant floodlight.
That's a perfect analogy. And to keep that spotlight aimed perfectly while you move around the office, your phone is constantly transmitting steering matrices back to the router.
Beamforming feedback angles.
You got it.
And here is the detail that absolutely blew my mind. The paper states this BFI data is broadcast over the air in unencrypted management frames.
Unencrypted, yes.
So when my phone is constantly shouting back to the router, "Hey, I'm over here, adjust your beam," it is shouting that in plain text.
Literally plain text.
Yeah.
Anyone with standard, unmodified wireless sniffing hardware can passively intercept those steering matrices. You do not need to break the network's encryption at all.
Wow.
And while BFI has a slightly lower resolution than raw CSI, it is incredibly efficient at capturing macro-level spatial shifts. So it tracks your overall body mass configuration, your walking trajectory across a wide area.
Simply by listening to the unencrypted chatter between devices and routers adjusting to your physical presence.
Exactly.
Okay, so to visualize this for everyone listening, think of the Wi-Fi in your office as a perfectly still, invisible pond.
I love this analogy.
When you walk into the room, you are a boulder being dropped into that pond. But instead of needing a special underwater camera to see you, the pond itself, the router's beamforming data, is constantly shouting out the exact size, shape, and speed of the ripples you are making.
That is exactly what is happening.
But okay, we have to address the elephant in the room here. Bouncing radio waves are inherently chaotic. I mean, my Wi-Fi drops if someone turns on a microwave in the break room.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
So how on earth does a system take messy, chaotic radio noise and reliably reconstruct a 3D moving skeleton?
It's a massive engineering challenge because you're right, the raw wireless phase data is absolutely corrupted by electronic hardware noise.
Right.
The paper specifically cites carrier frequency offset and sampling frequency offset, which is basically just the electronic static caused by the unsynchronized internal clocks inside the routers and phones.
So how do they fix it?
Well, before you can map a skeleton, you have to run that data through a highly sophisticated deep learning pipeline.
Right. The first step the paper outlines is phase sanitization. The pipeline applies a linear transformation across the raw phase vector to basically isolate the physical phase shifts caused by human moving, separating them from all that electronic hardware static.
Right.
It's essentially slapping a pair of heavy-duty noise-canceling headphones onto the Wi-Fi receiver, tuning out the microwave and the internal clock static so it only hears the frequency of human water mass moving.
That's a great way to think about it. But once you have that sanitized radio array, you still just have waves.
Just clean waves.
Exactly. So this is where the paper introduces a Python module called the Wireless to Pose Transformer. It handles domain translation.
Oh.
The system feeds these sanitized waves into a dual-branch convolutional neural network combined with an attentional transformer layer.
Which is a lot of AI jargon. But I love how the author explains this because it can get so impenetrable. The AI is trained to treat the chronological sequence of radio fluctuations as a, quote, pseudo-image. Think of it like an AI looking at a flip book made entirely of television static. Page by page, the static looks totally random.
Totally random noise.
But the transformer layer learns the grammar of how human bodies disrupt static over time. It watches the flipbook until it can spot the persistent, invisible shape of a person moving through the chaos, translating invisible waves into a stabilized 2D spatial feature map.
And with that stabilized 2D map, the pipeline initiates dense pose reconstruction.
Dense pose, right.
It projects those radio reflections onto a continuous UV coordinate system, which mathematically breaks the human body down into 24 distinct tracking regions.
Okay, but I have to play devil's advocate here.
Please do.
If I am a security guard sitting at a desk looking at an AI-generated stick figure rendered from Wi-Fi signals, why would I ever trust that over a video feed?
That's the big question.
Right. Couldn't the AI just hallucinate? What stops the system from glitching and rendering an intruder with their arm detached just floating through the wall?
That exact vulnerability is why the final stage of the pipeline is entirely non-negotiable. It's called the topology-constrained pose decoder.
Topology constrained.
Yeah. You can think of this as a rigid mathematical physics engine applied to the data. It enforces the biological boundaries of human joint lengths and rotational angles.
Oh, I see. So it's a skeletal rulebook.
Exactly.
It knows a human femur can only be so long, and a human elbow cannot bend backward.
Precisely. The system applies these absolute anatomical laws to the AI's rendering. So if the radio data suggests a movement that defies human anatomy, the decoder just corrects it in real time, ensuring the output is always a realistic, physically possible 3D human skeleton.
That accuracy is just incredible. But it immediately plunges us into a massive cybersecurity conundrum.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if this tracking is flawless, it fundamentally breaks our traditional models of physical security.
Yeah, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it introduces the era of physical zero trust. Historically, access control relies on what you carry, like an RFID keycard, or what you look like to an optical sensor, which can be defeated with a high-quality mask or a deepfake.
Right. You can steal my ID badge, but you cannot spoof the length of my femur or the exact rotational mechanics of my shoulder joint.
You literally can't. DFSI effectively creates an air-gapped anti-spoofing perimeter. A high-security facility can verify that the physical volume and skeletal proportions of the entity swiping a badge actually match the biometric profile of the authorized employee.
So if a bad actor steals a keycard and tries to enter a server room, the room itself will instantly flag that the bone lengths and body mass do not match the credential.
Exactly. And the paper highlights another use case for this called zero-knowledge compliance tracking, which solves a massive headache for industries like pharmaceutical.
Oh yeah, the clean room example.
Right. In a clean room environment, management needs to know if an employee actually used the mandatory sanitation station.
But installing a camera in that prep area feels incredibly invasive to the workforce.
Super invasive. But with DFSI, the system simply logs the spatial coordinates. It mathematically confirms that a skeleton performed the required washing motion, logs a checkmark for compliance, and nobody's privacy is violated by a video recording.
That represents the utopian application of the technology.
Yes, the ideal scenario.
But the threat vectors detailed in the paper are equally massive, because the exact same ambient signals that secure a building can be weaponized for invisible passive infiltration.
Yeah, it's a terrifying double-edged sword.
Because DFSI utilizes standard Wi-Fi signals, a threat actor doesn't need to physically plant a bug or drill a camera through a wall anymore.
No physical access required.
If they compromise a commercial router, they can turn an existing corporate network into a stealth surveillance state. They can map out the internal building layouts, track the guard paths, and monitor the daily schedules of the occupants right through solid concrete.
It completely eliminates the concept of the physical air gap. We conventionally view a high-security data center as being isolated from the outside world. But adversaries can now just park a van in a public space outside the building, passively analyze the reflections from ambient wireless fields leaking through the wall.
Leaking right out into the street?
Yeah. And they can reconstruct the internal physical movements without ever crossing the property line.
That is wow. And the implications for individual privacy are terrifying when we look at biometric gait fingerprinting.
That's the one that keeps me up at night.
Right. Think about what this means for you, the listener. Your walking stride, the microdynamics of how your posture shifts when you move becomes a unique, involuntary password.
Involuntary password, yes.
Once an AI model catalogs your gait signature, you can be passively identified and tracked across any environment monitored by a DFSI-enabled wireless network. Like your daily walk to the break room is permanently logged in a database without your consent.
It has the potential to completely erase public anonymity.
Which brings us to a vital question. Given these profound privacy implications and terrifying threat vectors, why does the author argue that global businesses will inevitably adopt this technology anyway?
Yeah.
I kept asking myself that while reading. Surely the PR nightmare of mapping employees' skeletons would make companies hesitate.
You'd think so.
But it all comes down to the most powerful, unstoppable force in the corporate world: unit economics.
Always follow the money.
Exactly. The financial incentives are just too overwhelming to ignore.
The cost comparisons in the white paper are staggering. Consider a standard 10,000 square foot enterprise facility. Deploying a traditional video camera architecture factoring in the optical units, structural mounts, power over Ethernet wiring, it costs between $24,000 and $60,000.
Okay, and to cover that exact same 10,000 square feet with a DFSI platform.
Between $400 and $1,200.
$400. That is a total financial knockout because it leverages the existing corporate routers you already paid for, requiring only passive edge sensors.
It's a no-brainer for them. And the ongoing operational costs present an even wider gap. High-resolution video streams demand 2 to 12 terabytes of storage every single month.
Yeah, video is heavy.
Very heavy. An enterprise is forced to maintain massive local servers or sign expensive cloud contracts. Meanwhile, DFSI spatial coordinates require less than 4 gigabytes a month.
Less than 4 gigs. Furthermore, because the architecture is entirely solid state with zero moving lenses or physical hard drives to maintain, the maintenance budget drops to near zero.
Near zero.
And we circle right back to the beginning. The legal compliance cost disappears. You don't need to hire dedicated data protection officers or run continuous legal audits because you aren't collecting legally protected visual biometrics.
It is an absolute CFO's dream scenario.
Truly.
And beyond corporate security, the use cases expand into sectors where optical cameras have always failed due to privacy concerns.
Like healthcare.
Exactly. In elder care facilities or hospitals, patients require continuous monitoring to prevent falls. But putting an optical camera in a patient's private bathroom is a severe violation of their dignity.
Of course. But DFSI provides real-time fall detection 247 in total darkness, straight through privacy partitions. It just maps the sudden change in elevation of a human skeleton and alerts a nurse instantly.
It is a massive leap forward for patient safety that completely sidesteps the privacy violation.
And we see a similar paradigm shift in retail analytics. Big box stores desperately want to track customer paths. They want to know your dwell time, like how long you stand in front of a specific end cap display before making a choice.
Right. But consumers universally reject the idea of facial recognition cameras tracking their every move in aisle 4. It feels super dystopian.
Super dystopian. But with DFSI, the store gets the exact analytics they need to optimize their floor plan, while ironically, your actual identity is much safer than if you were caught on a traditional camera.
The white paper frames this as Ambient Intelligence as a Service, or AIS. It resolves the fundamental conflict between a business's insatiable need for spatial data and the consumer's right to visual privacy, all running on lightweight, existing infrastructure.
Thankfully, Idris Iclek doesn't just, drop this technology on our laps and walk away. He lays out strict operational recommendations for enterprise adoption to ensure this doesn't spiral into a surveillance nightmare.
Yes, the guardrails.
And the first rule is about where the math happens.
Right. Enterprises must enforce localized edge processing. Raw CSI and BFI signal data, those chaotic radio waves, should never be transmitted to the cloud.
Never to the cloud.
The AI translation from wave to skeleton must happen locally on the hardware nodes within the building. Only the final anonymized 3D coordinate data is transmitted to the central server.
So basically, do the math in the room and only send the stick figure out.
Precisely.
Because if a server is breached, hackers just get a bunch of meaningless XYZ coordinates floating in a void.
Right.
Rather than raw signal data, they could reverse engineer into gait fingerprints.
Right. And the second recommendation addresses the physics of the system. Systems must implement regular automated calibration loops
Why is that?
because environmental radio baselines naturally drift. If an office manager moves a large metal filing cabinet, or if the atmospheric humidity changes dramatically over the weekend, the RF map of the room changes.
Oh, that makes sense.
The system has to actively recalibrate itself daily, otherwise the tracking accuracy degrades entirely.
The final recommendation is the most important one for the average person walking down the street. Mandatory transparency.
Yes.
Even if a building is not recording your face or your visual identity, they are still digitizing your physical form. The paper strongly argues for mandatory signage at all entrances, explicitly stating passive radio wave spatial monitoring active.
Which is so important.
The public has a fundamental ethical right to know when their physical space is being mapped, regardless of the medium.
We are truly witnessing the end of an era. The traditional optical camera, with all its legal liabilities and physical limitations, is slowly dying. It is being replaced by ambient intelligence.
We are moving into a world where everyday wireless waves function as high-fidelity spatial sensors. The walls really do have eyes now. They just don't care what your face looks like.
They just care about your shape.
Exactly. And the enterprises that master this wireless spatial intelligence will absolutely define the next generation of physical security and operational analytics.
No doubt about it.
It's brilliant from an engineering standpoint, but it leaves me with one final, incredibly provocative thought.
Oh, yeah.
We learned today that because our bodies are 70% water, we naturally, involuntarily distort the RF fields around us, allowing these systems to track our 3D skeletons with terrifying precision.
Right.
If that is the new reality of public and private spaces, what does the future of personal privacy actually look like?
It's a good question.
In 10 or 15 years, are we going to see privacy advocates wearing specialized clothing? Will we be buying jackets interwoven with materials designed to absorb or mimic Wi-Fi signals just so you can walk down a hallway or sit in a coffee shop without leaving a traceable digital ripple in the air?
Wow.
If the air itself is tracking us, simply existing in a physical space becomes a broadcast of our data. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the invisible world around you.